Welcome and thank you all for joining us this morning. I want to say that everyone at MEDA is very pleased that you're here with us today. I'm Pam Ruff. I'm the Executive Director of MEDA, and I'm going to turn it right over to our MEDA Board President, Heather Graham, who's a certified economic developer. She's also the Senior Director of Strategic Industries and Entrepreneurship with the Maryland Department of Commerce. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Pam, and good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us this morning for the MEDA Rural Economic Development Southern Maryland session, sponsored by PNC Bank. I would like to also recognize two of our premier sponsors this morning, the Maryland Department of Commerce and the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. We really appreciate your year-round support of MEDA. Before we launch into our program this morning, I do just want to talk a little bit about some upcoming events and other MEDA business that we want to bring to your attention. First, please save the date for some of those upcoming MEDA events. The Winter Conference will be on Thursday, January 14th, and on Monday, February 22nd. We're going to do things a little bit differently this year and split that session into two parts. The January date will include our partners from the GBC, the Maryland Chamber, and a few new faces as we kick off the 2021 general session. And then the February date will include our state leadership speakers. Registration is going to be going live this week, so be sure to look out for that. I'd also like to invite you to watch the economic development tributes that MEDA has been recording over the last few weeks. As you may remember, we expanded Economic Development Week to 10 weeks to celebrate the ongoing work of our profession and recognize the different industry sectors that are key to Maryland's economic vitality. And you can find those videos on the MEDA YouTube channel. So now on to our program. Several years ago, our partners at PNC Bank became the lead sponsor on partnering with MEDA to bring economic development to the forefront in the rural regions here on the shore. From the upper shore, the lower shore, the midshore, and now Southern Maryland. PNC Bank has made a statement that they are here to support economic development in the rural regions of Maryland, and we are so pleased to continue this partnership with them. So this year, for this session, we are focusing on the Southern Maryland counties of Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's. And we called upon our economic development leaders in those areas to take the stage throughout the day to help us plan the day and recommend speakers for the panels, and to develop topics that highlight the economic impact that economic development is having here in this region. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my fellow MEDA board member and Director of Economic Development in Calvert County, Kelly Slagle. Kelly will introduce our PNC partners. Kelly?
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. In addition to being the Director of Economic Development in Calvert County, I also have the good fortune of being the current chair of the Regional Innovation Collaborative, which you'll hear more about today. MEDA has been honored to have a strong relationship with PNC for several years. Having offered these rural sessions in other regions in Maryland, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to have this session to support Southern Maryland. For those of you that don't already know Chris, he began his career with PNC Bank in 1999. Today, he serves as Senior Vice President, Territory Executive, National Expansion Markets, Community Development Banking. Wow, that's really a mouthful. He is twice a decorated U.S. Navy combat veteran. A few other notable awards include PNC Performance Award, Circle of Excellence, and Market All-Star. He also received the Pennsylvania Statewide Community Action Association Sargent Shriver Community Service Award and the National Racial Wealth Gap Economic Inclusion Award by the National Minority Affordable Home Builders. Chris has a lifelong commitment for service to community and country and serves on the board of directors for the Baltimore Community Lending, Baltimore Business Lending, Associated Black Charities as treasurer, Center for Urban Families, Neighborhood Housing Services, and the Jobs Opportunity Task Force. He also received a gubernatorial appointment to serve on the Pennsylvania Community Development Bank from 2018 to 2012. Additionally, he serves as the executive sponsor for the GMD Prep EBRG. And Chris, you'll have to let me know what that acronym is. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Chris Rocky. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, Kelly. And thank you, everyone. That was a mouthful. I'm a little bit embarrassed, to be honest with you. But we are proud. This is our sixth opportunity to sponsor the Rural Summit. And as a Main Street bank, our rural communities are very, very important to us. At PNC and in community development, we focus on similar issues that you and your teams in the marketplace are. We focus on affordable housing, both through creation access. We focus on economic development with small business creation and facilities financing, as well as revitalization and stabilization of our neighborhoods and communities in crisis. We also still have an active opportunity fund. So we do direct debt and equity investments for projects that have a community development or CRA benefit. I would be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to thank Pam, Heather, and all the MEDA staff for putting this together. Without their partnership, this would not happen. And more importantly, I want to thank all of you. The work that you're doing is critical now. If we think about this year specifically and what's happened with the pandemic, with tax revenues down, the need for your work in creative finance is more important now than ever. So thank you. Thank you all for everything you do every day to improve our communities. Now, you guys aren't here to listen to me. And I'm hoping, does anyone know if Janice is on before I make the introduction?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, what you want to hear, or who you want to hear from, I should say. Let me introduce our keynote speaker this morning. Give me 1 second. I'd like to introduce you all to Janice Fadden. She is the Director of Strategic Engagement at the University of North Alabama College of Business, where she's been instrumental in the implementation of the Shoal Shift Project. This is an award-winning innovative pipeline strategy. In addition to being highly experienced in lean management and leadership, she is a co-author of an award-winning book, Strategic Doing, 10 Skills for Agile Leadership, and serves as a certified fellow of the Strategic Doing Institute. She has also served in various capacities as president, vice president, and general manager for major multinational corporations, including Honeywell, General Signal, Applied Power, Pacific Scientific, and Danaher. So please join me in welcoming Janice Fadden.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Hi, I'm Janice Fadden. I work at the Agile Strategy Lab at the University of North Alabama. And I'm excited this morning to talk to you about building an agile economy. And it's a pleasure to be at your conference. Today, we're going to uncover 3 forces of change. You'll meet some people who are working on wicked complex problems. You'll be introduced to strategic doing. You'll see strategic doing working in a community, and I'll invite you to have a bias for action. The first idea I want to talk about is that nothing is constant except change. And perhaps many of you have done these S-curves about your communities or your regions and thought about, hey, this declined and that declined, and we missed this or we didn't miss that. But really nothing's constant except change happening in a community. The next idea we want to talk about is really who's the boss? Who's in charge here? It's not a hierarchy that's in charge of our region. It's a network of people who are willing to work together, where no one's the boss, where it's porous, people come and go, and people who don't report to each other have to get something done. And it's really beyond complicated. When we think about simple things to do, it's a recipe. It's very simple. Follow the recipe. It should turn out the way it looks. And then some things are a little more complicated, making a high-powered rocket, sending it up in space, bringing it back. But we know how to do it. What's really complex is we don't know how to raise people consistently. Everyone is different. And so there's a lot of these complex issues in a region. What jobs are there, how educated people are, if people feel safe. All these things are complex. Let's meet some people facing complex issues. So here's Sam White. He wants to build a water cluster in Milwaukee. Greg Carnes, He wants to keep young people in the shoals. Nicole, she wants to address opioid addiction in Tippecanoe. Ernest wants to build a digital economy in Charleston. Lauren wants to design an agri-future in New Mexico. Kenyetta wants to reduce youth violence in Flint. And Ubaldo wants to help Puerto Rico recover from Maria. All these people are working on very complex collaborations. And one of the things that's important to, when you look at here, there's an increasing complexity, and on the horizontal is increasing complexity of collaboration, and on the vertical of problems. And some problems are contentious problems, lots of ideas in a community on how to solve. And some are politically turbulent problems, and then some are very wicked. And so what we've done is we've designed a process called strategic doing, that through 10 steps, we can help people think about and create solutions and do it with collaboration. You know, Edward Deming said, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. So if you don't know the process by which you're trying to solve complex issues in your community, then Deming's quote is correct for you. But today what I want to show you is there are ways to improve on that. So the first is we have to think about collaboration from a different aspect than what we've thought about in the past. We have to think about it in a process of going beyond just being mutually aware of each other, or sharing information, or sharing resources, or co-executing something like a job fair. We have to co-create something new where it didn't exist before. We're not giving up anything from our personal expert work that we're supposed to be doing, but we're co-creating something in a collaborative way. And that's what strategic doing does. It enables people to form action-oriented collaborations quickly, move them towards measurable outcomes, and make adjustments along the way. We do that by answering two questions. We define where are we going and how will we get there. So we'll define this pathway through going through 10 guided steps. In the steps, we have 4 questions in our workshop that we go through together. And it's this guided conversation that creates decision-making at the right time, the decision should be made, and action at the right time it needs to be made. So we think about what could we do together? What should we do? And what will we do? What have we committed to do? And then what is our 30-30? And 30-30 refers to a closed loop feedback system. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But the 10 rules guide that strategic conversation, and we can do that in a workshop basis. And we've done it hundreds of times with groups. But when we've also written the 10 skills that you need to be effective in collaboration and agile leadership into a book. So the closed loop feedback system, what we call 30-30, means what did you do the last 30 days, and what are you going to do the next 30 days, and when are we going to meet again? This action and accountability with regular check-ins is a core part of strategic doing, and it's a core part of the success. When we see successful implementations, we have seen people using this system. When we think about applying strategic doing to complex issues in a region, we think of a region needing at least 4 quadrants of improvement. Brain power, what is the talent and technology? What are the collaborations going on there? Support networks, who's doing startups, and what's the innovation that's happening? Not just in the businesses, but in how our community interacts with each other. Are we a quality place? Can people, goods, and services come in and come out of our region? And do people want to be here? And then what's our narrative that we're telling people about our region that is forward-looking about the future? So ecosystems grow as networks form within these 4 strategic areas. Shared habits of collaboration enable these networks to link, leverage, and align. And on the right, you can see here's an idea of how a region may build networks and core team hubs to work on a complex issue. So let's look at one of the places that used this process, strategic doing. And it's really the Shoals in Northwest Alabama. And the project's called Shoals Shift, wasn't originally called that, but it's an open and collaborative community shifting the future of the Shoals through creativity and innovation. The Shoals is an area of Northwest Alabama. So we show you a map here if you're not familiar with Alabama. We've got about 150,000 people, 4 cities, 2 counties. We have the University of North Alabama with about 8,400 students, most of our students coming from this region. What Shoals Shift wants to do is build this collaboration, and we embraced 4 organizations to build the core team. Those of us at the university, originally out of the College of Business, now at the Agile Strategy Lab, the Shoals Business Incubator, one of the longest serving incubators in the country, and then the Shoals Chamber of Commerce and the Shoals Economic Development Authority. We began a conversation in 2014. I'll have to say that at first, Shoals Economic Development Authority really didn't participate in the conversation. The leader there didn't see the need for this, but the chamber did, the incubator did, people at the university did. And so we began a conversation. And this is how an ecosystem to us changes over time. The conversation shifts, then a team forms. And for us in Shoals Shift, that process took 6 to 9 months of conversations. What should we be focusing on, and understanding how to shift a ecosystem. And then we actually had an event where we did strategic doing workshops around that same chart I showed you a little while ago, the 4 areas, and 4 a strategic agenda and some projects emerged. And those projects started in in 2014, we started with a few projects. And over time, we've launched quite dozens of projects. And the ecosystem grew and the network grew, as shown at the bottom of this slide. In 2019, there was a change at CEDA, a retirement, and the incoming person really embraced this idea of building a tech community. It embraced this idea of the new jobs that we needed for the community. On this page, I want to show you some of the projects that we've done. A big project for us that was one of our first projects was Idea Audition. It's a 3-minute business pitch contest. Happens once a year. We get about 30 people in there to pitch ideas, and we have some prize money. From there, they can go into Liftoff Shoals, which is like a pre-seed challenge. And from that pre-seed challenge, they might be students at the university, and so they might want to go to our generator, which is a place they can go work on their business. Or they may want to participate in Smart Start Weekend, which is a 72-hour event with students to get them to think about how to start a business. Shoals Spark, one of our funnest activities, is an idea competition for students in the region, all the way down to elementary students. They give us videos of ideas of how we can change the community. The other thing we've done at the university is we created a program called Institute Fellows, where we take some of our students and with a paid fellowship, they work many times at these startup companies or small companies on projects that could help accelerate those companies towards the tech economy. We are also the home for strategic doing. We teach strategic doing both online and in person at the university. But on the right are a couple projects that got started by others that we believe Shoals Shift inspired. TEDx Wilson Park has happened 3 times, and it's a great event. And the CEDA group has started a program called Remote Shoals, where they are working not to just to attract companies, but to attract people to move to our region. Here, I want to show you some pictures of some of the work that we've done, where we, in addition to unlocking more than $500,000 in community funding, and we gained some awards along the way, we did earn $1.3 million in grants. And part of earning the grant is that we had started with some of this work ahead of time. And that's really what is exciting about strategic doing is you don't need a lot of money to get started. You can just start. And we've launched at least 50 activities. Some are still ongoing, like I told you with the idea audition and the ones on the other chart. And some we did for a while and their use has stopped, so we've moved on. It's a very adaptive process. And because of the 30-30, you don't get too far down the road if you're heading the wrong way that you can't change. So why did these people choose strategic doing? Well, it's a guided process, step by step. You can learn how to guide the process. It has a bias to action, not just thinking and talking, but we're going to take action together. We are committed through the learning loop to accomplish it. And because of the learning loops, it's very, very adaptable. So I invite you now to take that action. You can enter a book giveaway we have and get the background paper on Shoals Shift. And you can learn more about both of these projects at agilestrategylab.org and strategicdoing.net. I really appreciate this time today, and thank you for inviting me to your conference. If we have extra time, Sandy, organizers, I could take a couple of questions, or we can conclude at this point.
Okay, thank you, Janice. We do have a couple extra minutes, probably about 5 or so. So if somebody in the audience does have a question for Janice, if you want to jump in and put it on the chat, we can pick that up and we can ask Janice those questions. Okay, I don't see anything popping up. So thank you again, Janice.
Okay, thank you.
For our morning, because we do have a big agenda and a lot more to cover. I'm going to, okay, sorry. I'm going to turn things over to Ellen Flowers Fields and invite her to unmute and introduce her panel.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. And Janice, thank you for that insightful presentation, which lends itself very nicely to the discussion we're about to have about entrepreneurial ecosystems here and the resources available in Southern Maryland. My name is Ellen Flowers Fields, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Continuing Education and Workforce Development at the College of Southern Maryland. And more importantly, I'm the moderator for this morning's panel discussion. And it's a privilege to share this platform with such a distinguished panel of innovators and thought leaders who are dedicated to entrepreneurship in our community. So we'll get started by asking our panel members to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their organizations, the programs that they offer, its purpose, who they serve, and how what they do benefits entrepreneurs. Ms. Wynn Briscoe, Hugh Burrell, Tommy Luganbill, Destiny Allen, Gary Evans, and Rick Tarr will introduce themselves and their organization in that order and respond to that question. So, Wynn.
Good morning, Wynn Briscoe, the Regional Director for the Southern Maryland Small Business Development Center. And we are the premier organization in our region that takes care of entrepreneurs and small businesses of all sizes, from the idea start to the existing business, all the way through to your exit strategy. So please connect with us. And we're based out of the College of Southern Maryland with locations St. Mary's, Calvert, and Charles counties. Thank you.
Hey there. Hopefully Hugh joins us in a second. Tommy Luganbill here. I run a facility called TechPort. It's a University of Maryland building out of College Park, but physically located in St. Mary's County. And it is a drone incubator, but we've been doing a lot more than that recently. And more than anything, it's a place for technology companies or even just entrepreneurs from a variety of backgrounds to either have space or come and work on their projects and collaborate in a variety of ways. So pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Our next speaker.
All right. Hi, my name is Destiny Allen, Destiny Allen Mitchell. I'm an economic development specialist with St. Mary's County. However, today I'm here representing Southern Maryland Innovates, which is the organization formerly known as SMIT. Some people may know it as that. But the mission of the organization is to grow and connect the innovation, technology, entrepreneurship community here in Southern Maryland. And one of the goals is to ignite and fuel that community through having and fostering collaborative networking environments for inventors, entrepreneurs, and those who are curious about working in that space. I'm looking for a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Destiny. Gary?
Hi, I'm Gary Adams. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Defense Technology Commercialization Center, which is essentially an ecosystem development organization focused on the commercialization of intellectual property and skills, expertise, equipment, facilities available through the DoD labs in Maryland. And I can talk a little bit more about what we do in detail maybe later on. We were founded in 2018. We ran as a pilot program for about a year, and we scaled up in 2019 and are now serving essentially the whole of Maryland with a particular focus on specific regions.
Thank you, Gary. And last but certainly not least, Rick.
Good morning. I'm Rick Tarr. I'm the director of the Tech Transfer Office and the Southern Maryland Tech Bridge for the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division. We are a research and development center located in Southern Maryland, have about 12,000 scientists and engineers solving hard Navy problems down here in Southern Maryland. And hopefully I'll get the opportunity to talk more about the Southern Maryland Tech Bridge.
Thank you all so very much again for your time this morning, and I look forward to this conversation. I know you have a lot of very exciting information to share. So Rick, I'm actually going to start with you. I have a question for you to tell us about bridges. And tech bridges, for those who are not familiar with it, has been defined as the Navy's way of increasing collaboration, knowledge sharing, and innovation with leading edge tech companies and innovation partners to accelerate solutions to the warfighter. Rick, how is this being accomplished in Southern Maryland?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. So like you mentioned, the Tech Bridges were launched as a program from the Navy leadership about a year and a half ago. The Southern Maryland Tech Bridge in particular launched this spring amid COVID. So we had a sort of a virtual soft launch. And really for us in Southern Maryland, it's connecting a lot of the activities that we're already doing with our nonprofit partners up with a national network. So we've been working with the Patuxent Partnership, with Techport, the University of Maryland, some other nonprofits in the region to help us work with small businesses and entrepreneurs. And now it's connecting a lot of those activities up with a national network. There are 12 tech bridges across the US, each one anchored by a warfare center. And so what it's allowing us to do is both connect technologies in Southern Maryland to Navy problems that are happening in other domains. So here at our facility, obviously we're focused on naval aviation, things that take off from carrier decks and land. But it allows our tech ecosystem here to connect up with undersea problems up at Newport in Rhode Island, out in California, and in Washington. And likewise, it allows those companies that can solve our problems access to our ecosystem and our technologists. So one of the other exciting things that we're doing is creating more opportunities for companies to demonstrate their technologies in mission relevant environments. So this was one of the initiatives that we started in 2019, and we're really doubling down on it in 2021. We have a 2-week demonstration exercise where companies can submit proposals to demonstrate their technologies in front of warfighters and in front of program offices that have funding to transition those technologies to the warfighter. You'll be seeing more information about that on one of our websites, impacts.tech, and it'll have a link to the 3 technology domains that we're looking at, and then ways for companies to submit applications to participate in that demonstration. So that's really exciting. We're also, of course, working with the Patuxent Partnership to do industry days. We're working on how we can do that in a virtual setting going forward. And then we have just recently kicked off a series with Techport and Tommy on tech transfer, sort of basic tech transfer agreements. We've talked about CRADERS, our Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, a very powerful tool to collaborate with warfare centers and Navy labs. And then we've talked about EPAs, which are Educational Partnership Agreements. And then this month, next Thursday, we'll be talking about Commercial Service Agreements, which allow businesses, entrepreneurs to access world-class, one-of-a-kind Navy technologies on a cost reimbursable basis. So those are some of the activities we've got going on. And I think as we get more traction on the tech bridges, you'll see more events, more ways to connect. One of the exciting initiatives at a national level that the tech bridges are doing is a nationwide technology connector tool, so that businesses will be able to go in, input their technology into this online system, and then that'll be exposed to all of the folks within the Navy that are looking for solutions to problems. So more info coming soon on that.
Rick, that sounds very, very exciting. And for those who are joining us who are not from the Southern Maryland region and may not be familiar with the Patuxent Partnership, can you just give Bonnie and her team a plug right here real quick?
Absolutely. I thought I saw Bonnie on here, but
Yeah.
Bonnie, okay, go for it, Bonnie.
Thank you, Rick. Patuxent Partnership is a nonprofit organization based here in St. Mary's County that works with government, industry, and academia. We've had a partnership intermediary agreement with NOC AD for about 8 years. And we also have an education partnership agreement with NOC AD and St. Mary's College of Maryland. We have similar agreements with Indian Head, and we have been doing some exciting things with Rick and his team as they go forward with this whole Tech Bridge program, and look to do further outreach with some of the other Tech Bridge operations. Thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Rick. That's great information. Certainly, this conversation lends itself to what was talked about during our keynote address in terms of an open and collaborative community and how doing things together help to make innovation work. So, Destiny, can you talk to us about how the unique assets of each of the counties in Southern Maryland are being aligned to help serve entrepreneurs and small business owners more cohesively?
Thank you, Ellen. So your point, one thing you just said is how we're connected and working together. And I do want to mention that just with the Southern Maryland Innovates team, we have the ED offices, SBDC, TEDCO, Techport, consultants, and even the St. Mary's College of Maryland. So just on that team alone, we have a lot of different stakeholders in Southern Maryland that come together to support entrepreneurs, and we offer our services to them as a team, pretty much. And we do like warm handoffs to each other, which really helps, those entrepreneurs and small business owners. And that's one way that we're working cohesively. And then I also wanted to mention that recently we had a crab pot pitch competition in October. And that was a really great, for those who don't know, Crab Pot is Southern Maryland Innovates annual pitch competition where we have a winner who wins a grand prize and a bushel of crabs and things like that. But we had different ED office economic development personnel on the judging panel and coming together, providing feedback and support for entrepreneurs who pitched at that event as well. And then, connections are made after that. Another way that the unique assets are being aligned in Southern Maryland is there's a website called somdinnovates.com. And on that website, it's a work in progress, but it is live and it's currently available for small businesses and innovators to use. And on that website, you'll see resources now like SBDC, Techport as storefronts or local ED offices. But small businesses are also able to put their information on that website. And it's a searchable database where we can find each other. So if you need to connect with another small business owner, you're able to do that on that website. And that's something that we as an organization are going to start pushing more and promoting more, but it's an excellent resource that is able to help everyone come together cohesively. And then one more thing I did want to mention, there's a lot of different resources. So we know, I don't know if Hugh is on yet, but Velocity Center, we have Tech Bridge going on, we have Tech Port, and all of us are talking to each other. So that's the important thing. We're all talking to each other and we're all working to get similar messaging out. And then one more thing I just wanted to mention Techport. At least in St. Mary's, there's an Innovation District Master Plan that includes Techport, that includes USMSM, that includes the UAS Test Center, and is working to have a roadmap to leverage those existing assets and make them more cohesive and make it innovative and walkable community. So that's what I wanted to share on that topic.
Thank you, Destiny. Does anyone else have anything to add in terms of the regional work that we're doing in partnership with each other? We have a few more moments for that question. Any other panel members have anything to add?
Yeah, Ellen, just worth highlighting, because I think the topic has been touched a couple times. You've got strong capabilities in unmanned and autonomous systems in both Charles County and St. Mary's County, and to a certain degree also in Calvert County. And that has been explored, but not as deeply as it could be. And so for those who are interested in robotics, whether it's on the ground or in the air or undersea, all of those things are happening in the entire Southern Maryland region. And so my belief is that in the near future, those will start to coalesce. So for folks that are in other parts of the state that are looking for more information on that type of thing, anyone on this panel can probably point you in the right direction.
And I'll chime in here. I'm finally got my half of my screens working, so I'll be checking from now and then to see if I'm still on here and the monitor hasn't failed. But Tommy, to your point, we have a very exciting time at the Velocity Center right now. And I'll embarrass you, Ellen. We've been working very diligently to equip the maker spaces there. And to your point, these are the very areas that we're searching to put in a quality grade of equipment that can be used by basically anybody in the area that has the need. And I for myself, I want to say how fortunate I feel to be here with all of you, because in all of my years, I've not seen such a group of talent gathered in one community or region here. And so it's diverse. I'm still meeting people, and I always come away from the meeting with what's left of my hair on fire because of the opportunities that this represents for the region. So
That's a great segue into, I'm so glad that you were able to address the technical difficulties and join us. Why don't you just take a moment, introduce yourself, and then tell the audience about the Velocity Center. You alluded to the fact that it will be the state-of-the-art maker space and ideation lab. So can we talk about when that's going to be available and how it'll serve this community?
very good. Well, first, to introduce myself, I am Hugh Burrell, and I have lived in Virginia just across the Potomac River Bridge most of my adult life. And about a year and a half ago, I moved over here to St. Mary's County. So now I'm a Marylander like all the rest of you folks. I have, oh gee whiz, probably about 30 to 35 years of combined industrial, biotech, and Department of Defense experience in various roles. And I had retired, and so I was very excited when the opportunity to direct the Velocity Center came along. So now I'm unretired. As to the Velocity Center, we're located in Indian Head in an enterprise zone about a half a mile from the main gate of the base. And when I came late to the project, I was just so pleased by the groundwork that had been laid, because when I first saw it, there was a shell of a building. It had been many things during its lifetime, but if I guess right, I think it's probably about a 40-year-old building. And a group of visionaries, local, regional, a lot of you here got together, and an outstanding building contractor, CMI, partnered with the College of Southern Maryland. And they did what I consider to be a miraculous job. The finished product is absolutely fabulous, and you have to come see it. Now, the nicest thing about it is the combination of possibilities that this building represents. We have, and if you'll just follow me in your mind, on one side of the main hallway, there are two large meeting rooms that we can get probably 300 people in for presentations, change of command ceremonies. And I call that the talking side of the building. We can talk there, we can produce videos, we can do anything that you can imagine with the wonderful equipment that's available. Now, on the other side of the aisle, there are the maker spaces. And that's where the ideas addressed in the main hall can be taken across and realized. And then we have classrooms, large and small, and a space that's dedicated to the Navy for meetings, for ideating, and everything else. And so that sort of takes us through what the Velocity Center is and can be to the community. And now the service of the community, we're viewing the community as an ecosystem like the rest of you do. And we have this opportunity here to serve and to reach out and to educate. So we're all about that. And as to Ellen's other question, we're working right now to hopefully open the maker spaces. Ellen, is it springtime, do you believe?
Yes.
Yes. And so we're working through the mix. There are 4 spaces and a storage area that could be turned into a space if necessary. And so we're looking at the tasks that can be performed in there. We have an ideation area that we're working to produce a state-of-the-art, and by state-of-the-art, I mean whiteboards and computers and scanners. And so you can go in there and you can propose your widget if you're in a classroom, or if you're a Navy person, you can propose it to your group. You can sit there and, if you care to, do a 2D design on the back of a cocktail napkin. We can scan that. We can put it into SolidWorks, AutoCAD, whatever we're working with, and we can do a CNC model of it if you want to use that process, or we'll be able to 3D print both component pieces and small finished assemblies. And now the whole idea here was to take some of the existing programs, such as Dr. Short has with the Navy, a rapid agile development program, where he works with CSM students and combine with experts from the Navy base, and they'll take an existing patent that the Navy has declared to be publicly available and adapt it to a different purpose. And then through the period of time that it takes to adapt this thing, manufacture it, into a technology demonstrator, and then prove the concept and move on, a second team of students is working with mentorship to develop the business cases and the probable uses for that product. So this is one example of how we can be part of the regional ecosystem throughout Southern Maryland, and we welcome you all to come there. In fact, we've been reaching out to each other and find a great deal of complementary qualities in the tech port and the other facilities in the area. In fact, we're trying to be part of both tech bridges and work with Commerce and work with the MAC and Indian Head, the PAX partnership, and the other groups to make sure that this grows in response to the community's needs and desires.
Hugh, before I move on to my next question, I just wanted to probe you a bit because I think our audience would be interested in this. You talked about students, you talked about the Navy, you talked about the community in general as users. I know that there are intergenerational intended uses for this facility. Can you just talk very, very briefly about the plans for that in terms of engaging younger audiences?
Yes, indeed. We're working with some of the homeschool and several of the local elementary schools and middle schools to find out where we can step in beside them. In other words, they already have wonderful programs in place. And we had a meeting, I suppose it was about 3 weeks ago at the Velocity Center with many of these groups, and we discussed these possibilities directly. And basically what we were saying was, look, we really don't want to start another program. What we want to do is become part of your existing programs and enable you to do things here that increase the awareness of the kids, sort of let them see what all this is and get their hands on it for a little while, as appropriate to their age. And the other opportunity is I've been canvassing around the retired communities that are among us. In fact, being retired, I'm part of that community. But there is such a wealth of technical knowledge there in the specific areas. I mean, lots of these people directly retired from Indian Head or Pax River in one of its many forms was their last post of duty. And they are here. And we were speaking in one of these hallway sessions where everybody sort of gets out of the formality of the meeting and just sort of leans up against the hallway and chats about it. And we were talking about how wonderful it's going to be to convene all of these different groups in small pieces as we go and give them opportunities not only to experience it, but further we have exhibition space there. We can turn that big meeting hall into exhibition space for robotics, rodeos, for demonstrations of your particular little concept. You know, do small trade fairs there. Well, not so small, actually. In the summertime, we have a vast parking lot, so we can set up booths outside as well. So we're actually, if you will, a hub of innovation with outreach throughout our local and regional communities. And we're here to just help take that spark that you can see in a young person's eyes when they come in and they realize it's possible to see and hold in their hands something that they only imagined before. And then now this can be scientific, technological, whatever, but the impact of that on a young mind starts them to develop inside of themselves. And then when we hook them with mentors, that give and take there creates a much more open mind to possibilities. And I, perhaps naively, but I hope that this fosters a quality of education in and outside the schools in our regions where kids will actually perhaps go through the university, go through their military service and say, where I grew up wasn't that bad of a place. I'm going to move back there and start a business. So
yeah. Thank you, Hugh. Absolutely. Ideation, being able to bring things to life from concept. And we're going to talk a lot more about that this afternoon. I'm gonna pivot a little bit here and ask Wynn an important question. So, the SBDC is one of the many organizations at the forefront of engaging businesses always, but particularly during this trying economic time because of COVID. So, Wynn, how has entrepreneurial needs changed in the current environment, and how has the SBDC pivoted to address those needs?
Thank you, Ellen. The way that we deliver content has changed tremendously during the pandemic. With everyone being remote, we've had to pivot ourselves as well as help our businesses pivot. How they deliver their goods and their services to their customers has drastically changed. How they engage with their employees has changed. So we have worked with many of our clients in this region to embrace what their current offering is and look at how they can diversify that into maybe multiple streams of income, how they can deliver it into an alternate way, following the ever-changing guidelines from CDC or Governor Hogan, having to, from day to day sometimes, change how they do their operations. And so it's been a hand-holding process with us, with our businesses in this region, to make sure that they are equipped and that they're educated on the current policies, but also how to greatly impact their community, still sustaining their business, not having to close down if they can help it, and what we can do to assist them with their staffing changes, with their protocols for protective gear, and also how to better engage their customers, whether it's social media, whether it's doing curbside, whether it's delivery, any of those alternative ways, making sure that they use technology more than ever. Keeping up with social media and delivering things via virtual environment has been an incredible increase for our businesses in this region, which has highlighted some of our concerns with bandwidth. So it's definitely been challenging for some of them, but we've walked them through the process and we are still holding hands. One of our biggest changes for us as the Southern region, and for each of our regions in the state, we're hosted by different colleges and universities. And for our region, we would always offer in-classroom instruction via the 4 campuses of the College of Southern Maryland. Our biggest shift that for us to pivot was a mandate from our state director to make all of our classes virtual from one source and no cost. So that was the largest pivot that we've done within our organization. I've just put in the chat the link to our one source training now that is coming out from our state. And that is training that is going through March 2021 with no cost, virtual. Some of them are self-paced, some of them are instructor-led, but it's allowing people to get the current resource information that they need, things that are popular, how to modify their delivery of services for the holidays, how to modify their services during COVID. So those are things that are going to be an ongoing modification as we are in this pandemic, and how to assist the businesses to know that they can pivot, they can look at how to take an opportunity, an obstacle, and turn it into an opportunity. And that's going to be the greatest thing moving forward, is helping them shift their mind. Because with mindset, if we can help you with your mindset, we can definitely help you grow. So we want to let them know that, we're here for them on the ongoing. And for any entrepreneur that's not engaged with the Small Business Development Center, we offer no cost business consulting and no cost training. Please connect with us anytime. We are here to assist.
Wynn, thank you. And along those lines, I'd like to ask you to elaborate, if you would. We hear in the media, and we see it when we drive around our communities, that businesses are closing. Many have been affected, whether their closure is temporary or permanent. They are closing. We don't hear as much about the number of entrepreneurs that are starting up new businesses. When you talked about opportunity, oftentimes economic downturns lend themselves towards opportunity. Can you talk about just a little bit new entrepreneurial startups, or at least interest in entrepreneurship during this pandemic time, and in what types of industries is that interest bubbling up?
Yes, thank you, Ellen. You are absolutely correct. At the height of the pandemic, when it first started in that March to May timeframe, there was a surge in this region of entrepreneurs that came out of the woodwork because their income was impacted. And when your income is impacted, innovation kicks in, right? So it's, you were sitting on an idea or you had always wanted to take that leap. And sometimes you just need a little push. And so this pandemic has pushed quite a few individuals into shifting, understanding that they need more than one stream of income. I always joke and tell people, if you have more than one bill, you need more than one stream of income. And so they learn that, right? They learn that it's multiple streams. They understand that, you might have a side hustle and, or they might have had an idea that they were sitting on, and they've come to us and we've reviewed more business plans, I think, in the last 8 months than we have in years, because people have just come out of the woodwork. They've come out of their shell. And sometimes you just need that gentle push to be able to help you take that leap. And that's what's happened in this region. I'm super excited about the number of businesses that are sustaining and staying open by pivoting and offering other services and products, but also the entrepreneur innovation that's coming out. People looking at ways to capitalize on what are some of the problems that they can offer solutions to, and how they can collaborate with other entrepreneurs that may have something existing, but now because of the pandemic, it has to be offered in a different way. So just coming out of their box, thinking outside of just the normal constraints. And when you're put in a virtual environment, you think differently. So we had to just really become more creative. And we're seeing that with the entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's growing tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. So Gary, I want to ask you to share with our audience a little bit about DefTech. And DefTech helps businesses remain competitive, helping them to leverage cutting edge technology, facilities, equipment, and expertise that is available to them in the Maryland Department of Defense lab. So I think that may be an aha for some of our attendees that maybe didn't know those resources were there in the defense labs. So I know you'll talk about that a little bit. So can you go to talk about what DefTech does and share a case study, if you will, that highlights the impact of the program's support?
Sure, but you just said it all so beautifully and concisely. I guess I should just go now. No, okay, so seriously. So as I said, we're essentially an economic ecosystem development organization. And as the keynote speaker said this morning, this kind of thing really is all about networks and ecosystems. I should say up front that DefTech is an initiative of the Maryland Department of Commerce. We were originally funded for the pilot program by DOD. We currently run off money from the Federal Economic Development Administration, and we essentially report to the Department of Commerce for what we do. The origin of DefTech was the realization some years ago that a surprisingly small number of Maryland companies were engaging with the Maryland Department of Defense research labs. And the concept of DefTech really emerged from that. And we essentially do 4 things, I guess. We have a lot of flexibility in how we work, which is great. A lot of what we do is not very formulaic, and that's deliberate because we want to be able to respond to things that we see happening in real time to be able to do what we do as well as we can. So the first thing we do is we really promote the availability of technology, intellectual property, expertise, facilities, equipment that are available in an enormous quantity on a fantastic scale within the Maryland-based DoD research labs. Spans almost every conceivable range of technologies that you could think of. Most people, as you said, Alan, are really not aware of that. And even some people who are very close to some of the labs don't actually know what's available from them. So we leverage our personal networks. We have created an online community of interest, which currently has just shy of 460 members. In the last 2.5 years, we've attended 86 external events organized by partners and industry groups and other interested parties. Before the pandemic, we spent a lot of time on the road. engaging with people. We do that virtually now, obviously. The second thing we do is we try to educate people about the process of engaging with the DoD labs. The labs are very receptive to working with companies, but the steps that you need to go through are not necessarily familiar to most people. And so we try to help people understand what that process is about. But we also do direct kind of educational events on topics that are relevant. And we've covered 36, again, over the last two and a half years, ranging from how you manage a product development product, the best way to maximize your chances of getting an SBIR grant, and even one session on the process for getting a medical device registered so that you can actually have insurance companies reimburse the cost of it. So really anything that we think is relevant to the companies and the labs we're working with. We also run an in-house program with one of the labs at Aberdeen Proving Ground. And the purpose of that is to help their scientists and engineers understand what the perspective of the companies is. So this isn't really with the expectation that all those folks are going to drop everything they're doing and rush out the door and start companies. It's really to help them understand the context in which entrepreneurs have to function and the kind of timescales that they work to and the stresses that they face, which are particular to their situation. We've been running that for about 9 months and we'll be continuing that into the new year. But a big part of what we do, having done all of that kind of outreach and education, is actually connecting people, companies with the technology transfer functions at the labs. And Rick is here. Rick is a great example. He's a superstar in DoD tech transfer. And we work to connect companies to Rick and his counterparts in the other labs. And as I said, that relationship is kind of difficult for companies that have never done it before. And so we kind of facilitate that process and help to manage that engagement. We currently have more than 259 now patents from Maryland DoD labs that we've exposed to companies and shared with them so that they can look at what those patents address, look at the technology, see how good a fit it is from them. And out of that, we've gained 60 client companies that have led to 35 active engagements between the companies and labs. And this is including Pax River, but Aberdeen Proving Ground, Fort Detrick, and Fort Meade as well. And out of those 35 engagements, so far, there have been 9 new agreements put in place between companies and labs, and we have about another dozen or so in the pipeline. And to be fair, when I say we have them in the pipeline, of course, it's not us, it's the companies. We're just kind of shepherding things along. And so that's hopefully giving you kind of sense of the diversity of things that we do. And we have a lot of metrics. I love metrics. We have a lot of very detailed metrics that we use to track what we do. And we report them on a monthly basis to Maryland Department of Commerce and also to the various organizations that are partners in DevTech, of which there are 13 counties, cities, and a couple of private sector organizations as well. So that's kind of a quick canter through what we do. And to answer the other part of your question, Alan, so I was thinking about what would be a good example to give, and probably the best one, and I have to say, as you can imagine, we get exposed to a lot of highly confidential information from companies, and a lot of it is confidential, even to the extent that they don't want people externally to know that they're involved in this kind of process to engage with individual labs. And so everything we talk about is anonymous. But we have one example, which was a company actually based in Baltimore that was developing a new material, a new kind of fiber. And they had the idea of creating a new kind of filter material out of this fiber. But they were looking for somebody who could test the effectiveness of that material as a filter. And we were able to connect them with one of the labs in Aberdeen that specializes in this kind of work, so that they were able to get, in a very systematic and verifiable way, that this filter material worked really, really well. And as a consequence of that, they were able to actually develop some personal protective equipment that incorporates these filters, which they were then able to sell to the Navy. And so that, I like that because it involves the Navy. It also involves the Army up in Aberdeen. And it wasn't just a sort of abstract, you know, kind of technical thing, let's do this because it could be very cool and geeky. It was a very practical thing, and it showed how the resources of the labs, A, are very diverse, but B, how they can just be used to solve day-to-day problems, day-to-day challenges that companies have when they're trying to develop new products. So we have other examples, but that's probably the best one, I think, and probably the one which is most relevant to Southern Maryland as well. I should say, and then I'll stop talking, we have a website. I'll post the URL for that in the chat in a minute. We also have a database of the patents that are available from the DoD labs in Maryland. We're going through a process soon to update that. It currently has about 1,800 patents in it. And you can go to the website online and you can search those patents by technology, by location, by all kinds of things. And like I say, I'll post the links for those in the chat. But there you go. That's the kind of speed read through what we do and why we do it.
Gary, thank you so much. We appreciate that overview. So let me ask you an equally cool and geeky question. Those are your words. I'm giving them back to you. What's the life cycle for a project like the case study that you just shared? How long does that take? I want to talk to the entrepreneurs who are on the line who may think they can start today and finish tomorrow. What do you think?
Well, actually, it varies a lot. Mm-hmm. So the fastest turnaround we had was actually about 6 weeks, because we found a company, we found a technology that was exactly what they were looking for. They engaged with the lab. It was kind of a no-brainer. They got a license agreement for the patent in place, and it was wonderful. That is unusual. I have to say, that's extremely unusual. Typically, you're looking at anything from 6 to 9 months, maybe a little less, because what has to happen is we have to bring the company together with the tech transfer office. They then need to work with the original scientists who did the work to introduce them to the company. They need to have a conversation about the technology, understand if it's a good fit, if the technology can actually do what the company wants it to do, those kinds of things. And then if all of that shapes up, then there's usually a process of putting a formal agreement in place. And you know, it's the nature of large organizations that it's difficult to make that happen quickly. And so it's also the case sometimes that the companies will have, you know, a number of priorities in parallel. And so maybe they move a little more slowly on some stages of the process, but you know, normally I would say no more than 9 months, probably typically, you know, maybe around 6 months.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd add to what Gary was talking about is a lot of these technologies that are available for license have huge investments on the DoD side, millions of dollars and years of research that have gone into these technologies. So it's a great opportunity. Oftentimes the royalty payments and upfront fees are very low. Again, DoD isn't looking to necessarily make a profit on this. So it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. If you can find that product market fit for the technologies, definitely check out the website.
Yeah, and another very good point. Thank you, Rick. That's extremely good point. Another point which I think is worth making, and this is kind of very much for any companies who might be listening. You know, often the real value in technology transfer projects is not necessarily that initial instance of, oh, look, we found something that might be interesting. The real value lies for the company in building a long-term relationship with a research group that has expertise in their field, which they can leverage in the future in the long term. It's not all just about patent licenses. Like I said, it could be about using equipment to do testing. It could be, you know, through a CRADA, as Rick says, where they're jointly developing something new. And so I always say to the companies we work with, you know, even if that initial thing doesn't pan out, the value is in that long-term relationship. And that really is the kind of critical value in tech transfer. And I think, you know, Rick would probably agree, it's much more valuable to them to develop that kind of long-term relationship from the lab perspective than just have a kind of quick, okay, we signed a license agreement and we're done.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, often our license agreements come with some of the time with the researcher to help transfer the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'd point out is Maryland is rich with labs. I think you mentioned this at the beginning. I mean, we have USDA, FDA. I mean, we have a ton of labs across a ton of different technology areas. So it's really a great place for an entrepreneur that wants to dig into that area and try to commercialize. So
yeah, that's
the theme of collaboration continues. We need a community, an ecosystem, if you will, of collaboration in order for businesses to thrive. I have a question for Tommy Luganbill. Tommy, Gary referred to Rick as a rock star. I'm gonna give you that title as well. Tommy is a rock star. And he leads TechPort, our regional incubator. And TechPort helps entrepreneurs turn ideas into profit. Snatch that right off your website. And with what new or emerging innovations have been developed as a result of the support of TechPort in our region?
Muted.
Mute, Tommy.
I appreciate that, Ellen, and yes, thank you, Gary. So I'm not the rock star, but there are rock stars that are frequenting TechPort every week, actually, and they've been an interesting addition to having a technology incubator. So the thing that I wanted to share with everybody that's on this call is maybe just interesting ways to think outside the box and share some tools. I'll drop them in the chat that I think can help all of your organizations. So as far as things that we've come up with in the last 6 to 10 months, I will say that COVID-19, obviously, for a lot of reasons, it was painful to a lot of businesses. But Wynn mentioned that lots of people started businesses to get new incomes or because they had new ideas. And so I saw a lot of that at TechPort. We had a large influx of people who maybe had retired because COVID started, or maybe they were out of work because COVID started, and they just kind of showed up to the building. In particular, a lot of interesting things to do with 3D printed personal protective equipment. That was something that we did in the spring. And then more recently, a gentleman that's a frequent visitor and tenant of TechPort actually created a giant oven that sanitizes N95 masks. And Rick mentioned the FDA. We actually just recently worked with the FDA on changing some guidelines so that we can clean PPE with dry heat. And these are all the ideas that essentially we've been working on in an airplane hangar, which was designed for drones. But the circumstances and the environment sparked people to, for lack of a better word, pivot or adapt. Kind of that's the word that I hear that keeps coming up. And one of the other things that we've been able to do is work on things just like what we're doing right here, putting things online, using cameras, lighting, sound quality, things like that. These are all things that now are extremely important. And I think going into the future, things will go back to a little bit of the same. People will return to office buildings, but maybe not as much. And so at Techport, I really think that after the new year, what I want to try to do is take some of the things that we've been able to do as far as creating ideas that don't necessarily fall directly in line with what we were originally founded to do, and push those out to inspire others and to have other industries say, well, wait a second, just because we are a seafood company doesn't mean that we can't work with drones, or we can't work with other food industries. And so what I'm going to drop into the chat is technology that we discovered very recently to give 360 tours to show people our building. And so I offer it to you not necessarily just so you can look at Techport and you can say, oh, that's really cool, but because I believe it's actually something that anyone on this call, given a small amount of financial resources and probably about a weekend, you could create your own tour. You could create a virtual tour for your building, for your product. The Velocity Center. The Velocity Center could have one of these. And then the other thing that I'm going to share is just an upcoming event that's happening this weekend. It's called the 2020 Game Jam Winter Bash. And it might sound a little crazy to folks on this call, but it's a 3-day long video game conference. And I bring that up because it might not necessarily have anything to directly do with the technology that we're all working on or talking about. But what I found is that the gaming community has been doing these online webinars for years now. And so they have an ability to keep people engaged even when they're not in the room with them. And so those two things, I'll drop them over here. I think that they're not only a way to help Techport, but they're also a way to help you all. And hopefully that sparks some new dialogue within each of your organizations.
Wonderful, Tommy, thank you. Thank you for sharing that and those resources. We'll look forward to them. So now I have a general question for our panelists before we open the floor for questions from the audience. What do you want entrepreneurs to know that we have not addressed so far? And please just chime right in, panelists.
So Ellen, I guess one thing I would say is that, we mostly know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Tommy and Hugh and John Short and I, often communicate on things also with Rick, and, Win often gets brought in on, work with individual companies as well. So that to that extent, the kind of ecosystem is there. And so, if somebody contacts one of us, they essentially have a doorway that will connect them to any of us actually that's relevant to their needs.
Very important point. And a benefit for entrepreneurs.
Ellen, that's the key, is that we're a collaborative ecosystem. So if an entrepreneur reaches out to any of us, like spokes on a wheel, like Gary said, we're going to bring them into the ecosystem and connect them. That's going to be the key that separates us from a lot of different role environments, is that we're all very collaborative. We work together and we communicate very often. So we know what's going on with each other's organizations.
Yeah, and Ellen, there's something interesting that I found in the last year, which is for a long time, when people from other parts of the state talk about Southern Maryland, they just kind of assumed it was all the same place, right? Like if you were going to Southern Maryland, it was really easy to get to Western Charles County, and then within 30 minutes you could be at the southern tip of St. Mary's County. For folks that have been to Southern Maryland, that's not true, because there's water and land mass that keeps you from getting from one place to another quickly. And so I think for years that was a struggle. There was this idea that you could just paint a broad stroke and say Southern Maryland is all the same place. But then people who were in Southern Maryland knew that wasn't true. Now what's happened is with things like what you're hosting right here, the barrier from getting from this part of Southern Maryland to this part of Southern Maryland, it's almost eliminated. The gap is closing. And so now more than ever, I think it's really easy to plug into the different aspects of our region without being confined by the geography. And that's one thing that I want people to know that aren't necessarily familiar with this area.
That's true, and I'll piggyback on you there, Tommy. Years ago, when the biotech industry was starting up, I had the privilege of being out working around Stanford University, and I saw in the old style this community coalesce around the ideas. This is in the late 80s, early 90s, and so this idea of biotech was people thought that we were cloning, and they thought we were going to make watermelons with rabbit heads on them or something like that. But instead, a large majority of the medicines that we now take for granted came out of that and the Human Genome Project. So what happened in that region, Palo Alto, Santa Clara, and just south of San Francisco, where people with ideas came in and rubbed elbows against each other. People with money followed them. They all rubbed together, and there became a number of little clearinghouses, just like this group here. If you had an idea for, a better way to make face cream, for heaven's sakes, within a week, you could be talking with the scientific know-how to put it all together. Then you could get help packaging it up so that the financial people, private or public, would understand what the heck you wanted to do and see if you really had a value proposition that could go somewhere. And we're right at that place right now. And as you mentioned, COVID gives us the advantage of not having to get in a car so much, and we sit down, we strap ourselves into our desks, we hope our cameras and microphones work, but we can reach out and anybody can reach into us. So go team.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you all for sharing those insights. Very good information, and I think it really points to the importance of collaboration when it comes to entrepreneurship and small business growth in our community. So I want to take the time to open the floor to see if our audience members have any particular question, or either directed at an individual panel member or for the entire panel. You can post your questions in the chat. Our monitor is looking for those, and I'll give that a moment to see what comes through. We're all taking a test right now. Can we be still and quiet for a minute and not feel like too much time has gone by? It's hard for adults to be quiet for a whole minute. You see, I'm talking. Okay, I have one question that's come through the chat for the panel members. This is open to anyone on the panel. This is a comment. It said, if it were easy, everyone would do it. Here's a myth. Please finish this myth buster. What are some myths or misconceptions that new entrepreneurs have about the road to startup success that you have to frequently address? That's a very good question.
May I answer?
Yes, please, Tommy.
That money will solve all your problems. If you think your first $100,000, you're going to have this illusion in your head that if I could only make $100,000, everything will be better. Well, guess what? When you make $100,000, then you're going to start to say, I could only make $1 million. And it will just continue and continue and continue. So try to find a way to be content and manage your business and your personal life in a way that you find satisfaction. Because if you put all your eggs into the basket of money, and the more money that you have for your business, the more successful and the more better run your business will be. You're gonna find a lot of failure, and you might be rich, but ultimately it will catch up with you. So don't rely only on cash is my point.
I'd like to throw something in as well. I
Yes.
guess I've been involved in starting quite a few companies, some of which have actually been successful. And my experience of doing that is that, it's actually hard. There's this kind of mythology which has emerged certainly over the last 10 years or so that, everybody should be an entrepreneur, and, you just got to start a business and everything's going to come together. That never, ever happens in my experience. And so you have to be prepared for that existence where, difficult stuff happens. It doesn't mean it's the end of the road. If you have good support, if you have good connections, you find ways around those obstacles. But, I see a lot of new entrepreneurs who really have the wind knocked out of their sails at that first hiccup. And you just have to go in anticipating that stuff's going to happen. But if you have good support, you'll figure a way around it. And, don't let that first knockback, really be the end of what you're trying to do.
That's well said, Gary, and I'll pitch my 2 cents in as well. This is sort of an old-fashioned story, but let's say her name was Sally. Sally baked a beautiful cake, and Sally's neighbors said, "Wow, Sally, can I have one of these for my wedding, my bar mitzvah, my kid's birthday, or whatever?" And so Sally soon found herself with a little second job in her kitchen, and she was happy with it. She was doing something that she loved, and there was still enough love in it. But along comes her husband and says, "I'm going to quit my job, and we're going to buy some commercial space and give you some big ovens and this and that and the other." Well, pretty soon, of course, as you find in the bakery business, she was working, probably about 17, 18 hours a day and dragging herself home at night and getting up at 4 o'clock the next morning to face this beast that they had created together. And pretty soon her health got bad. They had to hire somebody else. They didn't have the time to do the quality control, et cetera, et cetera. So to make a long story short, the thing that she started loving through the lack of proper vision, as you and Tommy have both discussed and stressed, can lead to the object of your desire becoming the beast on your back. And so one thing that I found when I entered the technology realm, like you have, is that so many of these wonderful inventors need to find someone to go along with them as part of the team to help organize this, like you're saying. I mean, the thing that I'm trying to say simply is that we're not all good at everything. And so one of the things that pleases me the most about the panel that's here is everybody represents intersecting talents and experiences, but we complement each other rather than compete with each other. So that's my point.
Absolutely.
On you and Tommy, I love how we all share brains. Exactly. The lack of preparation is the number one thing we see from new entrepreneurs, undervaluing preparation. They have the idea, they have the excitement, right? And they want to just go. And so they have this momentum to leap forward, not realizing they're trying to put decorations in the rooms of a house without even taking care of the foundation first, right? So it's making sure you have a solid foundation, some walls. Let's get a roof before we're looking at curtains. And so they're jumping straight in, not realizing they haven't covered so many bases. And so we want to make sure that they're successful in the sustainability And that's the key with proper planning and preparation. So they don't know what they don't know. They're just excited and they just want to go, but they have to take it step by step and maybe making sure it can be sustainable, and collaborating sometimes is your best bet as well with your competitors. So that's always a good thing as well, because some people have strengths and some people have weaknesses. Collaborate together and make a better union to offer a better service to your customer.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your responses to that. We have one more question and we have about 5 minutes. So I'm going to ask the panelists to jump in on this one as well. We're getting very good feedback from the audience. So with all of these great resources, you know, someone might ask, why everyone must be using your services? They're probably knocking down your door. For those of us who've been practitioners in the field, we know that that's not always true. So what challenges do you face in identifying and engaging with entrepreneurs?
I can say they're not a part of our ecosystem. A lot of times we are talking to ourselves in our own ecosystem, but some of the entrepreneurs don't know that we exist and realize that a lot of our services are no cost. So that's one of the challenges, is making sure that we have a better marketing platform to be able to reach those who, when they have that idea, when they have that passion, and they want to connect, that we can be there to support them. They're aware of what we do.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I mean, that's, you know, I said earlier on with DevTech, we do all of this outreach activity. We attend lots and lots and lots of events organized by other organizations, and our own educational events are part of the same thing. It's really to get out and connect with as many people as possible, because we know that, as Wynn said, you know, it's so easy to kind of talk into an echo chamber, and we know that the vast majority of companies in Maryland really are just completely unfamiliar with the kind of things that we do. And so it's this constant process of very proactively getting out there and engaging with people. And so, you know, I don't think there's a simple solution to that. It just needs a constant effort to make it happen.
Yes, it is ongoing. There's that old saying, it's not your father's Navy. And that applies to us too. It's not your father's ecosystem. So we have to repetitively put our message out and position it through proper market research and acknowledgement of how this year is different than last year is different than last year. And so that drives what I reluctantly call our advertising, is that growing market awareness of people.
I'd absolutely agree. I think whether it's trying to solve Navy problems, our small business innovative research process. And that was a lot of the genesis behind SMIT and later Southern Maryland Innovates, was to find places to connect with those entrepreneurs, to connect up the Navy researchers and engineers with folks out in the community that could take those technologies to market. But it is, as everyone else has said, it's a hard game, and it's hard to find those entrepreneurs, not just here, but we've looked across the country for innovative technologies, and it's hard from a DoD perspective to engage and entice them to solve our problem sets.
Wonderful. Thank you all again so very, very much. I want to thank our audience for your participation, your questions, and your comments. These are tremendous resources for the Southern Maryland community and for the state of Maryland. And we sincerely hope that you, either through partnership or as an entrepreneur, seek out these resources and supports. If you know other entrepreneurs, please share this information in your community. I want to thank PNC and the Rural Maryland Council and the Regional Innovation Collaborative for providing this opportunity for this platform. I'm going to turn this back over to our host for today. I hope you all have a great rest of the afternoon and a great holiday season.
Great. Ellen and panel, thank you all so much. That was really a great discussion. And I know there's a lot of good information being shared in the chat as well. So I hope everybody is looking at that, and we will try to share out those resources to everybody. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It's going to be a quick adjustment to the schedule. So we will come back at 10:30 rather than 10:35 for our next panel session. And so we will see you back here shortly. Thank you.
So just take a minute here. So I do want to give credit where credit is due. This whole effort kind of began with an effort by the Maryland Department of Commerce back in 2014. They received funding from the Office of Economic Adjustment. There we got, let me finish this here. That effort was called the Southern Maryland Tech Commercialization Pilot Project. In 2016, they started phase 2 of this effort in conjunction with the 3 Southern Maryland Economic Development offices. They brought in a company called Fourth Economy to come up with the effort and what it would be. And they worked with they had many large meetings with various stakeholders, and they came up with a plan called the Southern Maryland 2025 Initiative. And if we speed up to 2019, a memorandum of understanding was signed by the 3 Southern Maryland counties, as well as the College of Southern Maryland and the Tri-County Council for this Regional Innovation Collaborative. So this agreement set in motion a working agreement for the 5 entities to help diversify and strengthen the economy of Southern Maryland. This is kind of a big deal to have. It wasn't just the economic development offices, it was our county commissioners and the leadership of the 2 other organizations that actually signed a formal agreement saying we want to work together to strengthen the economy of Southern Maryland. So it's pretty important. The 3 strategies, and you'll hear more about this today. First is promote the quality of life in Southern Maryland. Second, create a more robust support system for startup businesses. And third, develop programming and funding to support diversification through small business growth. So you're going to learn a little bit more about those with our panels. We have a great panel. So we have 3 wonderful leaders. We have Dr. John Short. He's a professor of entrepreneurship at College of Southern Maryland. We have Kelly Hinkle, who works with me as a deputy director of St. Mary's County Department of Economic Development, and Lucretia Freeman Buster, who's the chief of business development for Charles County's Economic Development Office. And as was mentioned earlier, Kelly Slagle, the director from Calvert County, is chairing the entire effort. So I'm going to start off by bringing in John Short as our first question. John, we heard about a process called strategic doing earlier today. This process is going to be used to implement the 3 regional innovation collaborative initiatives represented by the groups like that you, Kelly, and Lucretia are chairing. Can you tell us how this process is going to be used in this effort?
Yeah, Chris, thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to address the group and say a little bit more about what the RIC has decided to roll out here in this portion of the conference. I don't feel like I need to say a whole lot in the way of introducing strategic doing, because I think Janice Fadden provided us a great overview in her keynote of what the process does and how it can fit into economic development. So I really just refer you to the website, strategicdoing.net. They have good introductory materials, and then the book was mentioned and the training opportunities, of which I have been the beneficiary over the last actually several years, leading me to the point where I've been able to help the RIC organize the working groups that you'll be hearing about shortly. I would, however, like to emphasize just a couple of things real quickly that I've found particularly compelling about using strategic doing as a means of promoting, in particular, economic development in a region. I am an engineer, an entrepreneur, and an educator in whatever order I need to be referred to on a given day. And in all my years in each of those roles, I'd have to say that strategic doing is by far the best way I've found to rapidly build effective teams with collaboration and a bias towards action built into their DNA. Trust is built amazingly rapidly. And if you've ever been involved with a team drawn from a diverse group of folks from different organizations, say across county boundaries or between private sector and DOD or educational institutions, or you name it. I'm going to guess that everybody listening to this has been in a meeting where you were supposed to be working with team members, with other members of a group on a project, and frictions and separate interests and agendas got in the way. Strategic doing is specifically designed to rapidly move past that. And then again, the other thing that I just mentioned is the bias towards action that exists. You participate in this process, you'll be getting stuff done while you're building that trust and generating new ideas, getting things done and figuring out how to move forward. As a tool for promoting what I think of as homegrown economic development, this is kind of the 21st century economic development model, rather than bringing in the CVS warehouse that you didn't want the other county to get because you wanted to have it yourself. What happens with approaches like that promoted by strategic doing is everybody works together to attract money to the region and generate money within the region, lifting all boats, if you will. And so strategic doing provides an opportunity to do this homegrown economic development work on a regional basis. And in particular, expand the reach of it rapidly, expanding that network, getting other folks involved, bringing in the new entrepreneurs, bringing in the new existing people, bringing in the cultural organizations, as we'll talk about, growing that network, increasing the connectivity so that more good stuff gets done and we're all working harder to support each other in our common goal of making Southern Maryland a better and more attractive and more enjoyable place to live.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think strategic doing is a way to ensure that we can really make progress. I know many times we start these initiatives and we kind of get all excited about it, and then things kind of die off a little bit. So I'm excited to help follow this process. We did get the results of the poll. It looks like we're very, very split between the various groups, which is great. We have great diversification here within our audience, and we appreciate that. I'm going to switch it over to Kelly Hinkle now. Kelly's leading our quality of life group. Kelly, tell us about that group. What's the focus of the quality of life group?
Good morning. Thanks, Chris. As Chris mentioned, Chris and I work together. We're actually both in the office today, but sequestered in our own offices, so we don't get any feedback. The quality of life group is focused on promoting the quality of life assets that already exist in Southern Maryland. And I think our knee-jerk reaction when we talk about quality of life is sometimes to talk about what we don't have and what we wish we had. And so we're not focusing on where are the gaps and what would we like to have. What we're doing is creating a common inventory of those quality of life assets, the events, the venues, the activities amongst all of our community partners, and then creating a tool for existing businesses to use to get that information out to their existing workforce, to share with their potential workforce, and then also for economic development organizations to use as we go out to try to attract businesses to the region to say, Southern Maryland is a great place to live. And there are all these great things to do. And our community is a place where you want to be a part of it.
Thanks, Kelly. And for the audience, you heard about a little bit about the quality of life initiative. I want you to go ahead and, audience members, go ahead and type into the chat. We don't have a poll question, but just go ahead and type it right into the chat. What do you think is one of the top quality of life assets in Southern Maryland? If you had to pick one asset that you'd like to highlight to people outside the region, what would that be? So just go ahead and type that in the chat and we'll record that. I want to bring in Lucretia now. Good morning, Lucretia. Tell us a little bit about your work group. Yours is focused on small business growth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you, Chris. My group, the focus is to provide opportunities for businesses to diversify and grow in the region, and giving businesses the tools and strategies to reach their goals. The goal is also to develop programs to meet the needs of growing businesses. And in that process, to develop ways that we can combine like the latest ideas and timeless principles that will propel our businesses forward. So coming up with a well-developed training program to help our business owner build a foundation for growth is our primary focus on this group.
Thank you, Lucretia. John, back to you. What is your vision for what the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Southern Maryland could be? I know you've probably given us quite a bit of thought. It's part of what you do.
I have. The place that I start when I think about the vision is with the following question. What would it look like if Southern Maryland was nationally known for its culture of collaborative innovation? Now, a lot of people, I mean, you've probably heard people refer to some place as having the potential for being or is becoming the next Silicon Valley. Well, I don't think we need to be the next Silicon Valley. I think we need to be the first Southern Maryland where the region is infused with this collaborative culture of innovation. So let me say a little bit about what I mean by that phrase. First of all, as numerous speakers have said, collaboration is key. As Janice emphasized, and you've probably heard many people talk about it, we're moving from a hierarchical world to a networked world. And one of the things that's nice about that network is the resources, the assets that the community has can be linked and leveraged rapidly if the folks that have those assets to bring to the table are talking. So collaboration is key. And one of the reasons that I think strategic doing is such has such potential for promoting regional economic development is because it provides a method of very rapidly making these connections and doing something with them. Now, another issue associated with my vision of Southern Maryland is we've had, and those of us who have been talking about this for a while know two things. Thing one is there is an amazing amount of technical competency, good ideas, a lot of positive, exciting ideation that goes on in the region. But as several of the panelists have said, it's tough to start a business. And the way I think of that is that the implementation is difficult. So when I envision an innovation ecosystem in Southern Maryland, or a collaborative culture of innovation in Southern Maryland, I use the definition for innovation that it is ideation plus implementation. So what this implies is we not only have to have the good ideas, talk about them, try and get them going, but we need to have the assets, the support, the resources, the networks to take those ideas and implement them. And I won't say it takes a village, and I won't say it takes a region, but it certainly takes a network that allows everybody to have as efficient access to all of the assets we have as possible. So building that network, that ecosystem, there's that word again, is part of that vision. And finally, I'd say that more to the initiatives that the RIC has, I would envision a collaborative culture of innovation infusing our startup community, our new company, fledgling entrepreneur community across all business sectors, as well as our existing businesses, helping them diversify and become more innovative. And then improving our quality of life as well. There are folks in our community who are talking about how to blend the culture and the culture of the region with the businesses in the region and use those assets together. So all of that goes into my vision for the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem that I would like to see the region develop.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a great vision. I think one that we can all get behind. I want to take a step back. I'll turn over to Kelly now. Kelly, can you kind of tell us how these groups are supposed to function? You've got a core group of people, and then you're also extending, you want to get input from other stakeholders in the community. How's that going to work? Like, explain the process. We have three different working groups. How's it going to work?
Yeah, so I think, we heard a lot about strategic doing. And I think when you really get down to it, the basic idea and premise is that you pull in a core group of members for your working team. And the idea is to build the working team with people who have a network and who are willing to go out to that network to build a consensus and a broader audience to bring your vision to fruition. So for example, the Quality of Life Working Group taps in on tourism professionals. Ashley Chenault and Lucille Walker are engaged in the tourism industry in Southern Maryland. And the idea is that they go out to their network and pull their resources and provide input from a broader audience. So we're a small group, but we have fingers in all of these other networks. And the idea is to pull all of those resources together and really tap into everyone's network.
Just a follow-up question, Kelly. Now, each county already has a tourism office, and they're obviously promoting all the assets they have to bring people down here. How is this effort different than each having a tourism office? And what's the difference? What are we getting out of this?
Yeah, so I'm going to take like a one step back and kind of redirect everyone's attention to the slide and talk a little bit about where the Quality of Life Working Group is going.
Okay.
You'll see that our Pathfinder project we're labeling it Eat, Drink, and Be Southern Maryland, because our effort is about promoting the quality of life in the region and doing an inventory of all of those assets. And I noticed a lot of the folks who responded to the poll were talking about the open space and agriculture and water being their primary asset that they're proud of for Southern Maryland. And the idea is that ultimately we want to promote those assets and promote that quality of life. And so what does it really mean to be Southern Maryland? And how do we use our existing resources? So the existing tourism office and economic development offices are doing this job now. And I think what we're looking at is tourism is operating within their space. They're pulling the assets that they believe the visitor will be interested in. And so they have a lot of this work done when it comes to destination marketing. And it's working hand in hand with tourism, with economic development. We do a great job in economic development about talking about unemployment rates and community safety and quality of K through 12 education. We're really good at statistics and numbers. And how do we transition that data into something that's tangible for the people that live here? And then taking that tourism message and pivoting it towards the people that live here. So I've worked in tourism before and in economic development, and I've heard many times the people that live in a community say, well, we don't know what's going on, or what is tourism doing, because we never see any of the marketing that tourism is doing. Well, that's because tourism is focused outside of your county and outside of your region. So 95% of the tourism marketing that's going on within a region, the people that live in that region never see it. So it's really taking what tourism is already curated and kind of pivoting that message to the people that live here.
Thank you, Kelly. Lucretia, you're focused on small business growth. Talk about why that's important. I mean, it's in some ways it's obvious, but why is small business growth important? And what kind of metrics is your group going to use? At the end of the day, how do we know that we've actually achieved something?
Okay. Kelly, do you have access to sharing my slide for me, please?
I think Sandy can help.
Sandy can, okay. But small businesses, or small and medium-sized business, very important because they are the backbone of any economy. So focusing on the growth of these businesses will have tremendous impact on our local economy. And as you all know, they are also the source of significant share of job creation within our region. And, you know, it has been saying even now during this COVID-19 pandemic, it has been saying that the share of unemployment reduction has been due to small and medium-sized enterprises. So focusing on the growth will contribute significantly to our local economy, as well as the country GDP as a whole. They also, small and medium-sized company also ensure that there is proper flow of money across our economy. In fact, the government, local government, or government as a whole, rely upon the boost that have been given from these small and medium-sized company and the impact they have had on the economy. So given all of these facts here, we need to focus on the growth of these small and medium-sized company in our region. Looking at what the existing business diversification group is doing, as I just talked about, we would like to focus on the businesses and encourage growth in any way possible, any innovative ways possible, because they're going to increase our revenue and tax base. As I said, they are vital to the overall economy of our region for employment. So we have to try to increase the business education in the area to assist them in expanding. And developing any type of program or training that will assist these businesses move to the next level to scale whatever growth that we can assist them with, and the type of activities. So these are some of the things that we will be focusing on going forward to help our local business grow and expand in the region.
Thanks, Lucretia. And who are some of the people you've tapped for your working group, for your core group?
In the working group, we have Mr. Justice. He's the, let me get back to that list really quick here. Okay, Joshua Justice, he's the president and CEO of Just Tech, and he brings significant experience to help us with innovative growth. We have Donna Johnson, he's a retired business owner and well known to the region, so he's bringing his expertise as well to assist us with programming and accessing other sources of communications for our businesses. We also have Wynn Briscoe, and she talked the last panel. She's the executive director for the Small Business Development Center for Southern Maryland. And also Tiffany Davids, who is with TEDCO. And then we have Dr. Martin Tyson. So we have all these brilliant minds that will be assisting us with, coming up with programming and other information that will assist the businesses going forward.
Thank you, Lucretia. So I want to invite the audience, if you have any questions for any of our panel members, just go ahead and type them in the chat and we'll be monitoring that and get those questions out. I do want to ask one more question of the audience also. In terms of Lucretia's area, what are good resources that you know of that assist small and medium-sized businesses? Good resources that we have now that really help small and medium-sized businesses. Go ahead and type that in the chat with resources that you know of that you think are really valuable. I want to go back to John for a minute. John, this conference is sponsored by MEDA, and the Regional Innovative Collaborative almost seems like more of a economic development department effort, but it's not. It's bigger than that, and the College of Southern Maryland is a part of it. Tell me why this College of Southern Maryland is a part of this, and why you think it's important for you guys to partner with the others.
Well, you mentioned in your introduction sort of the genesis of the RIC, and it really took, as again you mentioned, a number of discussions, and I was not really a part of the early discussions that were taking place. But one of the things that happened as a result of the effort that was ongoing and that Fourth Economy participated in was a finding. One of the findings from some of the work that they did was that it would be helpful to have an organization that was of regional scope, didn't have a stake in any particular county more than another, and would be able to provide significant assets, there's that word again, to help coordinate and bring together the 3 county economic development offices in a regional effort. And several organizations were suggested for this role, and one of them was the College of Southern Maryland. I became involved pretty late in the Fourth Economy process, but was involved in discussions that led to the economic development offices deciding that involving CSM for the reasons stated, and involving the Tri-County Council for similar reasons, made sense to have not just the economic development departments with the support of the individual county commissions, but also a regional organization that could bring resources to bear. And Ellen Flower Fields and myself wound up on the RIC board. And again, we've been building, Ellen had them, I've been building relationships with the regional or with the economic development offices throughout the region, and working to marshal resources that CSM has to bring to the table to help facilitate this effort, led to the organization of the working groups that you're hearing about right now. We have had the opportunity to participate in the crafting of the mission of the RIC and provide a regional perspective, which hopefully have been useful to the effort.
I don't know, John, if you can answer this, maybe Kelly or somebody else, but what is the timeline for this project? And if people want to keep abreast and keep updated, how can they do so? Do you have a mechanism for doing that?
Yeah, let me address that if I may,
Sure.
real quickly. The way that strategic doing process has worked in other places, and the way it's designed to work is that it's an ongoing process. So this is not just 3 projects. The bias towards action extends beyond just individual projects. Kelly referred to her working group's project as a pathfinder project. The idea is we have visions for each of our working groups, and the RIC sets those visions, and those divisions will develop in an adaptable fashion. There's that word again. And the idea is we do projects, we get stuff done quickly to get things started, and then we consult, we evaluate, we grow. So the basic time frame for the projects is 90 to 120 days.
Okay.
So on a quarterly or 120, 360, every 3 or 4 months, the idea is that you come back together, and the overreaching core group, if you will, for this entire effort is the RIC Advisory Board. And this is economic development directors and their staffs, and CSM, a couple of representatives, CSM, and the Tri-County Council. So we'll do these projects. They'll be evaluated in 90 days. Reports will be written and evaluated. They'll be looked at, and we'll come up with a way forward. Hopefully, the networking and the ideas that have already been generated can serve as the basis for another iteration that would be yet a larger group. And if this works, and it's worked other places, if this works, the effort will grow, and more folks will become involved, more relationships will be built, more assets will be linked and leveraged to accomplish more, and hopefully a healthy innovation ecosystem will be the result.
And I'm going to jump in as far as the quality of life group. So, we've identified that we need to take an inventory of all the assets and events. And right now, in the next 30 days, the core group is reaching out to their networks and compiling key contacts across all sectors, and then also starting to develop that inventory of assets and events. And then the next step would be actually putting together the tool, whatever the tool looks like. If it is a standard marketing campaign, if it is plugins that can go on everybody's websites, if it's printed collateral that promotes the quality of life assets, that has yet to be determined. But kind of our tertiary long-term goal is to actually build a network of, for lack of a better term, missionaries to go out into the community and engage with the community and share the message and really be evangelical about living in Southern Maryland and what it's like to be Southern Maryland, and have that word of mouth and share on all of your personal platforms, your social media, your friends, your family, and really, really get that message out beyond, printed collateral and something living on a website, or, whether it's ad placement or billboards or radio or whatever that is, but really to be evangelical about the message of Southern Maryland.
Thanks, Kelly and John. John, you've got some familiar faces on your group. Tell us who's on your group.
Can I get my slide up real quick?
Sure. Sandy, can you help us with that?
We, of course, are focusing on developing a startup support system. And so we felt it important to try and bring in folks who are entrepreneurs, have been entrepreneurs, and folks who support entrepreneurs. To that end, we have local entrepreneurs, and I don't know whether they're on today or not, but Michael Steele, who a number of you know, who is a local engineer who has a side gig, which I suspect is growing into a main gig for him, with a business with a couple of products. So he's a startup entrepreneur in the region, as is Matt Hayes, who works in the drone space. And as Tommy referred to Matt indirectly as a tenant, one of the tenants at the tech port. Lisa Creedson is with the Small Business Development Center. And then Michelle Goodwin, until recently, was a colleague of Ellen's and mine at the College of Southern Maryland. She has been involved in the Southern Maryland community for many, many years in a variety of roles, and has both an interest in innovation and building an innovation ecosystem in Southern Maryland, and a very big Rolodex, which goes back to the point that Kelly made, is we need to bring these assets to the table, and Michelle's Rolodex represents a significant asset that she has been willing to contribute. Last but not least, I'd mention Wayne Devereaux, who's probably known to many of you. He's been in the region for a long time. He works for a large company, but he's a special kind of entrepreneur. The way I think about it, I would call him an intrapreneur. In other words, within his larger company, he has been able to participate in and launch a number of innovative efforts, new products, that sort of thing. Not to mention the fact that he, like Michael, has a side business, again, fairly significant side business, where he develops and ships products all over the world. And for myself, as I mentioned, engineer, intrapreneur, serial entrepreneur. I'm also a current business owner. My business happens to be across the bridge in Virginia, just south of Charles County in King George. But I bring a significant amount of startup and entrepreneurial experience as well. So that's the group and some of the assets that they bring that we're drawing from. If I could, Chris, before you switch the focus, I did want to mention very briefly what our Pathfinder project is, and call everybody's attention to it. We're going to use what are known as customer discovery interviews to improve entrepreneurial asset retention, developing relative and we're going to do that by developing an interview instrument and asking the right questions. Now, that's a highfalutin set of words to say we are locating and contacting and interviewing folks who have started businesses in Southern Maryland and left, or attempted to start businesses and weren't able to, or are working in organizations where they are trying to do innovative things and have been frustrated. Now, this may sound like an odd start for building an entrepreneurship ecosystem, but the reason I mention this is because any journey starts with a single step. Our group chose to pick a very specific foundational Pathfinder project. We generated other ideas, but we picked this one first because it could be done quickly and with a bias toward action, as you've heard said many times. So hopefully quickly we'll collect this information. It will guide us as we choose another project and maybe spawn other groups with other projects that will help us move towards our larger goal.
Thank you, John. Lucretia, in terms of existing business diversification and resources, do we know yet, let's just say we come up with some great resources and some materials and some partners, do we know where that information is going to reside? So if I'm looking for that type of information at a regional level, do we know yet where I can maybe find that down the road when we get to the end of the day here?
That is in process. We haven't determined that yet, but I know communication and improving access to information and communication for our small businesses is very critical. So that would be one of the things that we will address to make that information easily accessible to the businesses.
Okay, thank you. Back to John Short's area, just a question for the group again. What's the best resource now for startup businesses in Southern Maryland? So go ahead and type in the chat box what you think the best resource is now for startup businesses in Southern Maryland. I know we have a lot of different ones, but what do you think is the best one? Go ahead and type that in the chat. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, we have now a formal relationship and a formal project to work together as a region. We do work as a region already. I mean, this is not something brand new. The Economic Development Offices, College of Southern Maryland, Tri-County Council, we do work very often. We're communicating daily, but we don't have anything formal like this. So it is kind of a big step. It's important for us. We're excited about it. We're happy to have Kelly as the chair and Darrell as the vice chair, and all the Economic Development Offices are on board. Obviously, College of Southern Maryland, all the way up from the president, and John Hartline, the Tri-County Council. So we're excited about the project. I think it can make a big difference. I know when you talk about like Kelly's area, the quality of life group, we're trying to attract and retain workers and businesses. If you can't articulate what those quality of life assets are, if you're not promoting those, you're going to have difficulty doing that. And I think in our mind, sometimes we think about St. Mary's County and Calvert County and Charles County as these separate entities, but if you're coming to the region, it's Southern Maryland, and you don't know where the borders are for counties, and you don't care if it's a great place to do boating and do water sports or ride a bike. It's Southern Maryland, so we have great history, all the assets that we have. So the things that we want to work together on are really regional. So although we work together, I think to take it to the next level is really important for us. And it's important if we're going to continue to attract businesses, workers, and to build an ecosystem for entrepreneurs to be known as a place that, this is a great place for entrepreneurs. We've got resources, and for us to be able to articulate those and all be on the same page is really, really important. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. We can catch those. I know we're kind of running up to the end of our time a little bit. Heather, Sandy, do we have questions or any questions from anybody that we want to throw in here to our panel?
Hi, Chris, and thank you, panel, for a really great conversation. We can give folks just a few minutes to maybe type in any questions. I don't see any in here right now in the chat box. I do see some good feedback on what are great resources for entrepreneurs. SBDC getting a great shout out there, and Def Tech, and Commerce. Well, thank you very much for that. Be sure to include your ag community in this discussion. Does anybody want to address that?
I do.
Go ahead. I bet you do, Kelly. Go ahead.
So my quality of life working group actually includes Martin Prue, who works in ag development for Charles County. So ag is definitely included in the quality of life group. And as Lucretia is Charles County, excuse me, her network also includes ag. All of the departments of economic development have ag development on their team. So ag is definitely, I promise you, not being left out of this conversation. And I would just say, just to kind of bring it back around to, what would be success in my eyes for the quality of life group? I'm actually going to quote Martin. So this is kind of a good segue. We talked about, our framing question for the quality of life group was essentially, what would it look like if a diverse cross-section of the people that lived in the region regularly patronized its quality of life assets? And so, we talked about, Casey Jones, who's on our working group with recreation in Charles County. My vision would be every program that Casey offers would be sold out, and they'd be at capacity, and you'd have to hire additional staff in Charles County Recreation to cover the demand that exists locally. And Martin said it really eloquently in our strategic doing exercise. And he said, tapping out the supply with local demand leads to growth and opportunity. And that really, I think, frames it from an economic development perspective. So as economic developers, we would like to tap out the demand, which leads to growth and opportunity. And so for us, it's success breeds success and activity breeds activity. And the more people that we can get out locally to take advantage of what's happening locally, the more demand it will generate. And then that will, if we have one restaurant on the corner that's always packed, then what happens? Another restaurant opens. If we have one historic venue that's doing a one-day wine festival and all of the tickets are sold out to local residents, they have to add a second day to that wine festival. So, it's really just really getting the community excited about where we live so that that excitement has a ripple effect beyond the region.
Great, thanks, Kelly. I see a question from Jamie about the other work groups that are promoting the region. So Jamie, I know we talked today about the quality of life work group, the startup ecosystem work group, and the existing business diversification work group, but maybe there's been a lot of conversation about how the quality of life work group is promoting the region from a tourism perspective, but also to local residents. Is there a promotion aspect to the other two work groups, or kind of what is your target audience in terms of communicating the work of those groups?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I was going to say, that's kind of what I was getting at when I was asking Lucretia the question. At the end of the day, if we've identified resources for entrepreneurs and for small businesses, how are we going to get that information? I think that's like TBD, kind of to be determined how we're going to get that out. I don't know if Lucretia or John have other comments about that.
Yeah, I'd like to say, I'm sorry, Lucretia, go ahead.
No, that's exactly what Chris said, because some of the areas that we were focusing on, as I said, is to improve the access to information and communication for our businesses. And one of those things that we would like to communicate even more is, to facilitate access to capital. And, it's one of the major thing that our small businesses are encountering right now, and through better marketing and communication. So, but again, it's something that is being determined how we will have this as a centralized, having a centralized information center that we can have all of these in, that our businesses can have easy access to.
I was going to tie together how the information will get out and the comments about agriculture and aquaculture with respect to a startup support system by simply saying that you can contact RIC members, contact myself. I'll put my email address in there. My hope, as I've said, is that as we move forward, there will be more efforts. And maybe you have an idea for how to support agriculture or agritourism or something like that in the region. Perhaps in the coming year, there will be an opportunity for you to participate in a working group that has been convened to address an issue like that. And the experience that you would have would be to come to a workshop, work with a group of like-minded folks, come up with a project which you would have ownership in, and over a period of 90 to 120 days, accomplish something moving towards your goal. And in the process, get plugged in, not to just the group that you're working with, but with the other groups and the other teams in the working groups and the other assets that the region has as we grow and is going. So that's my plug. Agribusiness, agritourism, aquaculture, keep your eye on it, get involved, share your assets, work on a project. Let's grow this thing.
Great, thanks, John.
Yeah, I think we need to have a digital component. I know Southern Maryland Innovates. There is a website for that probably will be used in the future to distribute information and update people on what's going on. So we do want to make sure we're not just identifying resources and expanding them, but we're also letting people know that they're out there. And that's kind of the goal here. I also want to make a plug. I think the 3 group leaders we have are fantastic. They're super passionate about the areas they're in. They've got a lot of expertise and experience. So I'm happy about that.
Great. Well, it looks like we have answered all the questions. I see Kelly put her contact info in the chat. Chris, is there anything else that your panel wants to address before we wrap up here today?
I think we've covered it. If there aren't any other questions, I think we're good. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Chris, Kelly, John, Lucretia, thanks for being with us, and great discussion. We really, really appreciate it. So as we move towards the end of our program, I would like to turn the floor over to Darrell Brown. Darrell is the Economic Development Director in Charles County, and he is going to wrap us up this morning. Darrell, are you online?
I am online. Thank you.
Great. Good morning.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to, again, my name is Darrell Brown. I'm the Director of Economic Development for Charles County, Maryland, and Vice Chair of the RIC. I want to thank MEDA, particularly Pam Ruff and Heather Graham for putting the event on, as well as PNC Bank, who's a major sponsor and contributor to this conference. In addition, I want to thank Chris Casalemas and Kelly Slagle, my jurisdictional partners, for their participation and collaboration, as well as Tri-County Council, the College of Southern Maryland. And I do want to give a shout out to Maryland Commerce. Steve Wall has been a major participant with Rick in this conference. Thank you to the keynote speaker, as well as Chris Rocky, who provided opening remarks. I definitely want to thank the panel moderators who did an excellent job with the panels, as well as all the panelists who participated on the panel and in the discussions. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what has been said this morning, although there are 2-3 sort of closing thoughts that I would like to leave you with. The first is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I have said over the past 5 years, since I've been Director of Economic Development for Charles County, that those counties or communities that collaborate are those counties and communities that succeed and advance and succeed. And we are doing that not only in Charles County, but we're doing this regionally. We're doing it in St. Mary's, we're doing it in Calvary, and we're not operating in a vacuum. And so collaboration is very, very important. But collaboration does not work unless we have participants like everyone who is participating in this conference. I want to thank all of you, because after all, this conference is for you and it is about you, all the business owners and entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. We want to be able to share with you what the resources and tools are, and to also develop a more robust and a more healthy ecosystem for Southern Maryland. And we do that, again, through collaboration, but we must have participants from the business community to participate, because not only do we want to help our existing businesses grow and expand, but we also want to make the region an area where businesses want to come and make investments and participate and grow and expand in Southern Maryland. So it's going to take all of us. As it says, it takes a community, and we all have to do it together, and we all have to work together. My second point that I would like to make, I want to pick up on something that John Short said earlier. concerning the strategic doing process for economic development. I want everybody to know that that is the process by which we anticipate creating initiatives, other initiatives that will grow from the strategic doing process. And so there will be opportunities for participants on this call, as well as new participants, to stay engaged and get engaged, because again, we need your help and your support, and we will do this through the strategic doing process for economic development. The last point that I want to make, and I'm sure people are probably thinking, okay, so what are next steps? Well, again, engagement. And so John Stewart is planning sometime before the end of the first quarter of 2021, again, before the end of the first quarter of 2021, to hold another workshop on strategic doing. And so I would encourage all of you who are interested, who want to stay engaged with what we all are doing collectively together. Let's continue to do that by engaging the strategic doing process for economic development, and because that's where the growth of the initiatives will come from, and we need your help in that support, and that is the opportunity where everyone who's interested can engage in the process. And so with that, those are my sort of 3 points that I wanted to close with. Again, thank you all for participating. I hope you found the conference helpful, informative, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward and we begin the new year in 2020. So thank you all very much, and have a great day.
Darrell, thank you so much. And Darrell, Chris, and Kelly, we really appreciate your partnership with MEDA and putting this event together. Thank you again to PNC Bank, and especially to Chris, Rocky, and Chick Ham for their support. Thanks to all of you for joining us this morning. And we look forward to seeing you soon at the next MEDA event in January. Take care.